Are your headphones noise canceling?
They are.
Then how can you hear me right now?
They're canceling to everything beyond my headphones.
No. I am confusion.
Uh, okay, so we are live now. Hello, everyone. Um, Welcome to the very first episode of Nerd for Life. It's a brand new podcast that we're doing on this channel. It's a STEM careers themed podcast. STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. So the whole idea of this podcast is that I know a lot of people that work in STEM type career fields, and I invite them on my show, and we talk about their job and why they like it and all that fun stuff. So we've got our first guest here today, my friend Wes, and yeah, we're going to be talking about his job as a technician operator. Am I saying a biomanufacturing operator at Aldevron?
Manufacturing. Yep.
Okay, yeah, so that's what we're talking about today. We've got a good show in store for y'all. So yeah, just a disclaimer. For every guest that comes on here, we pretty much just ask them a list of questions that I've made ahead of time, and I sent Wes so he doesn't have to, answer these questions on the fly. We've kind of, gone through and talked about beforehand, so that way, we're not throwing Wes under the bus. Although we might do that in the episode, We'll have to watch and find out.
Yeah, it's not going to be too cold. At least not today.
Yeah. So do you want to just introduce yourself, Wes, to the audience and let them know who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. I am Wesley. I work at Aldevron. I'm a graduate of NDSU, hence the sweatshirt right here. I graduated in May of 19. Yeah, go Bison. And I studied biology and got my degree in biological sciences at NDSU. And I've worked a few lab jobs since I've graduated, and this is my most recent job. I've been at Aldevron for just about 2 years now as a biomanufacturing operator. I guess before we get too deep into that, a little more about me. I'm also a father, a husband, and a pretty good friend. You can ask Sam; he'll vouch for me.
Most days.
Yeah, most days. Otherwise, yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Really summing up the last 4 years pretty quickly there. So,
sure. So we talked about Aldevron. So, what are your main responsibilities as biomanufacturing operator?
Okay. Yeah, we can just call it operator too. That's generally
sure.
Most operations there are operators. Most job titles, that is. But most of my responsibilities, it depends on the day, but mostly inventory management, ensuring that the items that we're using are consumed interdepartment wise, so that we can track those through finance and other inventory management systems. I guess that's more back end. What I do in the lab is, actually monitor the environment in which we're growing bacteria, and we use that bacteria to grow proteins, mRNA, plasmid DNA, which is just small versions of DNA. It's generally circular DNA. And, that's used for many different things. Obviously, proteins, mRNA, used in the recent COVID vaccine for Pfizer and Moderna. We partnered with Moderna, and we've done a lot of work with them for those vaccines. And, pDNA is used for many different things. We're a little far removed from, say, like biological therapies. So, in introducing genes and other things of that nature. So it's in essence what we do. Our clients, they'll contract through us and give us, their plasmid construct, which is, whatever sequence of ACTG, and we'll grow that in bacteria and just give them straight DNA at whatever concentration they require. Lots of stuff on that back end that I don't normally see, just kind of monitor and ensure that we're growing the right product. But a lot of that is what we do is biological therapies and vaccine key ingredients, not necessarily vaccine manufacturing though.
Okay. Yeah, so sounds like a lot of technical biological stuff that's kind of probably a little bit above my head a little bit, but so what does like a typical day or week look like for you then? Like,
so I guess looking at it, quarterly, we ebb and flow just with everyone else, depending on what's going on in the world. In this last, I hate to say it, but 2 years now since COVID's been hitting us, we've been doing COVID, everything COVID. Now, specifics on that, I can't go into too much detail, but like I mentioned earlier, we've done a lot of stuff with Moderna. We've partnered pretty plentifully with them. Otherwise, other companies are really just trying to get out different immunotherapies for whatever is going on. We do a lot of work with extremely rare genetic diseases, and our clients that are working on not necessarily trying to cure those. I hate to say that they're not trying to cure them, but a lot of stuff like that it's trial and error, and a lot of what we do in good manufacturing practices area is for trials. So like clinical trials. So, our clients are trying to work towards a better cure, but ultimately, that's the trial and error of it too. So, but a day-to-day thing, it depends on our workload. I probably spend about 40% of my time behind a computer, managing inventory, ensuring that we're tracking the right item numbers. And, in our GMP environment, it's very specific. So we want to ensure that we're charging our clients for the right things. Tracking one item number, ensuring that there isn't anything that's outstanding with that. If something comes up with quality, we're ensuring that, hey, we can track, back to this step. This item was used here and it might have impacted quality this way. And that's a lot of what our inventory management is. Otherwise, if I'm in the lab, about 60% of my job, I'm either putting bacteria onto an agar plate and growing it, or I'm transforming bacteria with the plasmid DNA or protein. And I'm monitoring our growth. We grow those in single-use fermenters, and they vary in size. So, we might do something at, in a 2.5 liter flask, or we might do something at a 300 liter level, and everything comes with its own, set of challenges. So monitoring is going to look a little bit different. So whether we're pipetting something out with, 250 microliters of sample or 60 mils of sample, we're going to just essentially monitor our growth and add different cocktail solutions to it and ensure that we're growing things properly.
Sure. So do you wear like a snazzy little lab coat and stuff when you're working in the lab, or?
Yeah, for the most part, we have a few different levels of clean. We have our equipment, which gets level 2 cleaned, which means it's just hit with 2 types of cleaners, level 1 being the first one and level 2 being the second. And then when it comes to personnel gowning, we generally wear long sleeves and pants. And anytime we enter any area with product, we'll have safety glasses, hairnet, lab coats, boot covers, and gloves on. And then you gown, top to bottom. You want to ensure that you're touching your feet last, just because, you can wash your hands with some hand sanitizer afterwards. That way you're not touching your feet and then, going to touch my hair and my face and then my whole body. So stuff like that. And it seems to be common sense, but, it's outlined in SOPs. So we're ensuring that we're doing things thoroughly and cleanly. So that way we're kind of like a CYA, cover your butt type of procedure. But depending on what we're doing, if I'm just in our clean corridor, that's going to be my typical gowning. This is lab coat, hairnets, glasses, boot covers, and gloves. And when I'm actually doing production, I enter ISO 7 gowning, which it's basically full bunny suit without, like hazmat stuff where you're going to see like an air handler, bringing in air. It's pretty basic. That's going to involve from head to toe, a hood over my head with a hairnet underneath, I'm going to put on some sterile goggles, albeit everything's sterile, but I'll put on like a full coverall jumpsuit. Generally, we'll wear 2 pairs of gloves. One initially, after we put on our coveralls, we'll put on a set of sleeves, like disposable sleeves that go up, a little past elbow, and then another pair of gloves over that. And before we do the gloves, we put on boot covers as well. So we'll have 2 levels of shoe coverings and 2 levels of hand coverings. And that's anytime that we're monitoring our environment. And that's just for cleanliness procedures. We'll ensure that we're keeping anything that's on our persons away from the product itself.
Sure. So, and you said ISO 7, is there like a scale of different like levels of, equipment that you're going to put on? Is there like a 5 and 6 levels or something?
Yeah. So they're all regulated pretty internationally, like ISO 7. ISO is the acronym. It goes down to ISO 5, which is basically in your biological safety cabinet, which is, if you're in a lab, that's where you're going to be doing stuff in a hood. So it's a controlled box basically with HEPA filters and positive airflow, where it's monitoring, keeping the flow of air through the whole box, pretty well regulated, and preventing anything from entering without actually being physically put in there. ISO 6, we don't use a whole lot. We used to have it, but then they removed it because it's somewhat unnecessary. It's just essentially an imaginary box around your ISO 5 environment, preventing other people from going in there. But it was unnecessary, so we've quit using that. ISO 7 is going to be just what I mentioned before, the full bunny suit, and that's pretty typical. ISO 5 being inside a box, you're in your ISO 7 gowning while you're in ISO 5. So 7 to 5 is while you're working, but then 7 is the entire room itself, while 5 is just the box you're working in. And then ISO 8 is just your general gowning, your hairnet, safety glasses, gloves, and boot covers with your lab coat. So, okay. And I forget exactly what the acronym means. It's probably going to hit me later on, but, and then on top of that, there's so many other different acronyms, or class 6 or class 5 safety labs or whatever else. We don't work a whole lot with that. It's pretty general.
Sure. So have you guys been working ISO 7 then because of COVID, or is that always at that level because you're working with like bacteria and stuff?
Yeah. So what we work with is non-pathogenic E. coli. So we're not worried about people getting sick. I mean, if you ingested a good amount of bacteria, obviously you're probably going to get a stomach ache, but generally just preventing us from coming in contact with the product, because what we're doing, it's going to be used for immunotherapies, or it's key ingredients for vaccines. So we want to ensure that we're keeping all of our personal bacteria. Obviously, we have SOPs for good hygiene and everything, and everyone, I want to say, practices those, but we're just preventing anything from coming in contact with the product. It goes through purification and dilutions and everything to ensure that it's clear and exactly what the client needs. But just because it's going to be entered into people's bodies, we don't want anything going into that.
Sure.
And again, that's ISO 7 is when we're actually working with the product. If we're monitoring, we're just going to be disposing of the samples that we pull, so we're not worried about extra gowning or procedures. Monitoring is just ensuring that the growth parameters are doing all right, oxygen's going in, we're getting enough acid and base for the growth cycle of the cells, because it's pretty basic science of like cell growth cycles. So we're just monitoring that all the parameters are doing well.
Sure. So what would you say your favorite thing about your job is?
My favorite thing, I'd like to say we all like getting paid. That's a pretty good thing. I have some really good coworkers. I work with a lot of people who have similar educations and similar backgrounds as me. So it's nice to be able to come into an environment like that. And we're not all in the same playing field. Some people have masters or PhDs. So, they obviously have a little more expertise in their areas, but it's nice being able to go into a workplace and everyone's familiar with, similar processes. So it's not trying to, get people up to speed on certain things. So it's pretty even playing field in that regards.
Sure. And then I guess the reverse question would be, what do you least like about your work?
There are a handful of things, but instead of being a negative Nelly, just want to say manufacturing, especially with biologics. Like we have, basically predetermined, and this is just because we've grown things so many times with so many different types of cells, bacterial cells and everything, that we can basically say, the cells are going to grow in a certain pattern. At this point, they're going to be growing at their most. At this point, they're going to, normalize growth, and at this point, they're going to stop growing. So, I mean, it's pretty cookie cutter for the most part. So as long as you're not getting into that rhythm of, oh, I know exactly what's going to happen, you can do well. Otherwise, it's manufacturing. It's the same thing day in, day out. There are different processes, but in a year, I might do 5 different processes 60 times each. So it's just a lot of the same stuff over and over.
Sure. So what kind of problems then do you deal with when you're at work? And
thankfully, some of the biggest problems I deal with are inventory management. If they were biology related problems, we don't come up with those a whole lot. That would be a different story. Inventory management, though, like I said, is pretty big. We want to make sure that we're tracking the different item numbers and how things are being recorded. And because we're in a GMP environment, everything that we sign is a legal document, because, we could be putting people's lives at risk if we're not doing our job properly. So if we're not recording what item is used and at which point, then, that kind of looks bad on us. It doesn't give us a good reputation. So thankfully, we're just managing inventory. And that's why we spend a solid 40% of our time, ensuring that we're doing things properly, getting things from the right areas, using them in the right areas too. Otherwise, we have certain technical issues. Equipment not working, that's always a big one when you're working with different types of light bulbs and different calibrations on everything. It becomes a lot. You really become really good at juggling a lot of different things, knowing where things are at and how to access them quickly. And that's just because if you're fully gowned up and you have to leave your room and then come back and you have to wait 10 minutes before you can use a certain piece of equipment, it takes 30 minutes just to go grab one little thing. And kind of some of the biological issues that we have are just cells not acting the way we want them to. Like I said, we kind of know like the growth cycle and when they're going to be growing the most, how many cells per milliliter to assume, when we're sampling. When we do face those issues, which because we're in GMP, it's all regulated. It doesn't occur very often. Basically, we just rework it. I worked in a different department where we can make adjustments on the fly, but with GMP, we're contracted pretty heavily through other companies. So everything that we do is, it's not necessarily always time sensitive, but if something doesn't work the first time, everything we do is single use. So we just get rid of it, scrap it, start it over, try to figure out what went wrong. Usually it's just cells weren't growing properly. We didn't have enough growth. We have to change up the media that we're using to grow them in. So it's, for the most part, pretty easy to track. It's also because it's so regulated, it's easy to have operator errors. So we just track that as well too.
Sure. So then what kind of decisions do you personally make, like on your job and stuff?
I'm kind of getting to the point where, because it's so much like, every single day you can assume how long each process is going to take. If I'm inoculating something, it's going to take about 2.5 hours. If I'm with someone who's pretty experienced, we can knock it out in an hour and a half. New hires, it's going to take us about 3 to 4 hours. And that's, extrapolated into the other processes that we have. So I'm kind of getting to the point where the decisions I'm making are, when my team member is going to go take lunches, because, we want to balance out our work schedule with our, or whatever else we have going on. Otherwise, the decisions I'm making are just reviewing what items we're ordering ahead of time. So just being proactive with each growth cycle and each process. making sure that we're going to have enough of everything. Obviously, excess is better because we can always return items. We have in-house warehouse, so we can just, take things and leave things as we need, obviously inter-department. So it's not us personally returning them or taking them, but it's an option. So a lot of the stuff I'm doing is just, I guess, really making sure that we're sticking to our timelines and making sure everyone's taken care of. So we're not, all working 6.5 hours in the lab when we could be, balancing our time amongst all of us and doing different tasks.
Sure. And so I guess now my next question is kind of looking more at a broader scale of things. So looking at your kind of career field and the industry as a whole, like how does your position kind of fit into that kind of being the world of biology, I guess? So
yeah. So Aldevron specifically, they've got kind of their own market. There aren't a whole lot of manufacturers like them where they're manufacturing DNA as well as proteins and mRNA, because I guess the way we're set up is we're pretty universal, so we're able to cover a lot of ground, and because everything we have is single use, we can turn around really quickly and redo something or double down on something. However, like specifically my position, I don't want to say low man on the totem pole, but like spearhead of the operation. We're the people who are in there doing the work and getting the ground covered and making sure that we're getting enough product for our clients. Otherwise, a lot of other companies like Moderna, Pfizer, pretty much every other biotech company has roles similar. But we kind of tie in with other departments like research and development. So people who are sequencing DNA, or people who are trying out different growth cycles or different medias to grow things in, we're kind of all pretty well tied into, that type of operation, is ensuring that all these different new procedures are being implemented, or at least tried before they're fully implemented. So.
Sure. So the next thing we're going to move into are kind of more hot topic type questions. So the next question is going to be, what current issues and trends in the field should people know about or be aware of?
Issues in biotech, I would say, lie in more of like a personal type field. Biotech, I guess there are a couple ways to take that. Biotech takes a lot of your time. We have a lot of people who put in, plenty of overtime every week, but they're SMEs, subject matter experts. So I mean, they're there for a reason. They're working hard and making sure that things are going properly, and that's in every field. I mean, not just Aldevron. Sure. However, when you're in operations, I don't want to say that there isn't much upward movement. If you're in operations, you have to get lots of experience, because there are so many different facets in client relations or interdepartment communication that you need to be good at and proficient in before you can move up to even like junior management or just a different department. So the pay, while it's pretty good, you just expect to be in one position for quite a while. We've got some operators that have been there for 6 to 10 years, and they're just now seeing promotions, and whether those are to junior management or to different I guess more upward training positions, that's just kind of what they face. But also having GMP lab experience is really good. So on the flip side of that negative is, lab experience, GMP lab experience is really good, because that's the highest quality that you're going to get, or the highest standard of lab experience. So I mean, basically that can be taken anywhere. Obviously, with the proper credentials, you can go to another lab and do anything else.
Sure. So then, kind of on the same topic, what are some common career paths that you see in this field?
Yeah, we actually we had a previous operator. She was a senior operator who had been working on our second shift for a while. From what I understand, she could have moved on to like a junior management position, but instead she used her experience and moved on to a different company and worked as a senior operator. I'd say that's pretty common, just because a lot of other companies, we're kind of a unique situation. While we're landlocked, a lot of other biotech companies are out on the East Coast, and that's for a lot of logistical reasons. it's easy for planes and ships to get out to, a coastal city than it is for, planes and trains to get to an or a landlocked state such as North Dakota. But
Sure.
career paths, if you put in the years, and I've seen it, as little as 2 years, you can work into junior management. But even taking that too, you can take a junior management position and go into something completely different as far as like research and development. Because if you're working in operations, it's good to have the practice and the experience working in a lab. But if you're working in research and development, your turnaround time is so much quicker. You're not spending so much time, 3 days on something like we would personally. You're probably going to be working on 5 or 6 different tasks, all with, within a week turnaround time. So, you can really take your experience anywhere, depending on how high you want to go. It's just a matter of being able to put in that time. Personally, as a father, I'm going to be here for a while, just because, well, I really don't feel like uprooting my whole family and going to do something just to make a little bit more money. The experience would be nice, but, it's really just about, watching your opportunities, and obviously, always looking for different opportunities too. That's pretty big. Best time to look for a job is when you have one. So getting that experience to do that is always preferable.
Sure. So what related fields do you think someone should consider looking into if they're kind of looking around for, biology related type positions, or if they're wanting to go into this field of work?
Yeah. I guess to preface that, I would recommend, obviously, post-secondary education. Going to college is always great. Obviously, looking at your personal finances and ability to repay loans, it's a more personal thing. But, if you're going to step into biotech, at least in biomanufacturing, strongly recommend like a biotech degree, strong understanding of microbiology, just general biology concepts. Chemistry is always really good. Different career fields to look into, genome sequencing or just genetics in general. There's a lot of work there. Yeah, really the world is wide open. It really just depends on what you want to go into and how deeply you want to dive into it. If you want to work in operations for 10 years, there's always an operator's position open. If you want to work in research and development, a lot of companies favor a lot of different experiences because, you bring diversity to a team. So that's always one thing to look out for. Obviously, needing a higher education for that too, grad school or what have you. So,
sure. So, kind of moving into the next topic here. So, the lifestyle and personality for, your job and stuff. How does your job affect your general lifestyle?
I guess in recent years, becoming a father, I'm more focused on a home life rather than like a heavy work life. A lot of my coworkers are young and single or young and unmarried, so they put in extra overtime, whereas I get my 40, maybe a few extra hours, and I'm ready to go home. Just spend a lot of time focusing on family, personal stuff, going to the gym, making sure that, whatever I want to do is, not put on the back burner. I think that's kind of important in any career field, but a lot of my coworkers will do the same. They spend time on themselves. We try to create a good culture. So everyone, everyone on our team may not be into the same things, but we'll spend time together outside of work. Currently, like 6 other of my coworkers, we're all in a rec basketball league. So, every Thursday night we'll go play basketball. We usually get absolutely destroyed, but we show up, we have a good time.
Sure.
Yeah. Making sure that you're balancing yourself, with the stuff that you want to do. We did a Friendsgiving a couple months back in November. During the summer, we all go out and play tennis once a week. Winter, we play Jackbox. Yeah, it kind of falls more personally. And this is just speaking from an operations standpoint, you can really dive into work and keep your phone notifications always going on Microsoft Teams. So you're going in odd hours of the night to go make corrections or go monitor stuff. But I don't think a whole lot of people like to do that. The money's nice, but you got to watch out for yourself, take care of yourself. So,
sure. So do you guys operate then like a normal 9 to 5 business type hours, or is it more like shift work, or how does that work exactly?
Yeah, so we have an upstream side of things where we grow the bacteria, we're the harbingers of life, and then we have downstream, which they're the harbingers of death, basically. So we grow all of the bacteria and we harvest it, basically put it in these liners and we keep things frozen. And then when downstream is ready to process it, they thaw it out, they break it up, and they just destroy all the cells just to extract the pDNA. So upstream, we have 2 shifts, day shift, night shift, and we don't work 7 days a week. I'd say, I think 6 days a week currently with the 2 shifts, and some people Sunday through Thursday, some people Monday through Thursday. So, whatever, what have you. So basically we're going to be running 7 a.m. and basically 7 to 3 and then 3 to 11. So 2 different shifts running almost 24 hours, 6 days a week. But then second shift, not second shift, downstream, they basically have 24/7 operations, with things like holiday pay if their schedule falls on Christmas or whatever else it is. Obviously, work with management to get those days off or cover shifts, but that's neither here nor there. Because a lot of what we do is we're going to set and forget something. And not in a negative way. If we're monitoring, we're going to have people there to monitor what it needs to be monitored, but we basically keep our timelines within that 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. So we're not running things over, or, not checking on things when we legally need to or when it makes most sense. Otherwise, we can produce so much more than downstream can process. So we're not running near as much as them. So that's why they're split up into 4 different shifts, 2 days, 2 nights, and they rotate back and forth. So
Sure. So is the downstream then, are they simply there just to make sure that everything is kind of gotten rid of properly, or are they actually doing like testing and data collecting as well?
yeah, so their job is pretty encompassing. They don't deal with like environmental monitoring like we do. So they take the cells, they add different liquids to it, different buffers and medias, just to get specific concentrations of pDNA, because they'll kill out the cells, get rid of the extracellular material, and that is bio waste. So they have to keep track of that and destroy it properly. But a lot of what they do is just waiting for things to filter, run things through. Pull a sample, check the conductivity, check the concentration, the density, make sure that those are up to spec so that we can process them and send them out to clients. Because if we're sending out things, a key ingredient for a Pfizer vaccine or Moderna vaccine or whoever, and it's at 10 times concentration, as soon as that shot goes into someone's arm, bad things can happen. So there's a reason they're working 24/7. So they're making sure that the end of our spearhead is functioning and not faltering. So.
Sure. So what kind of accomplishments tend to be valued and rewarded in this field?
That's a rough one. There really isn't. I don't want to say that there isn't a whole lot, but just fine tuning things, communication between shifts. That's always important. Streamlining things, that's good. Interdepartment communication type things. When we submit our work, it gets reviewed by an internal team. Recently, we've had operators take control of like ensuring that, that after we submit it, it goes to our team, our other team, and that information coming back from them to us is streamlined. So we've had some people take on that. Otherwise, adding things, troubleshooting sessions, ensuring that we're all keeping morale up. I don't want to say that there isn't much, as far as accomplishments, but just making sure that you're doing your job right the first time. I'd say that's, you get recognized for that. That's really good. They have like their own in-house thing where you can nominate operators, and they give away, they take 3 operators every month, and they say, oh, hey, you did a great job. This is recognized. Here's $100 for, groceries or something like that. So they've got some like in-house recognition programs, because there aren't a whole lot of things that you can do to, I don't want to say get ahead, but like, because the job is so regulated, exactly what you're going to be doing. So it's just those fine tuning things that we can actually work on. So.
Sure. So then moving on to the next kind of general topic. So trying to enter this career field. So how did you become interested in this field?
Um, Actually, that's kind of a loaded question because my first job out of college was manufacturing, and I quickly realized I did not like manufacturing. So basically, basically the pay. This job was paying better, so I saw that the benefits were better, pay was better, um, flexibility was huge, and that's I think just an in-house thing. I can't speak for every company, but if my daughter needs to leave daycare early, uh, coverage is always really good. I'm able to communicate with my coworkers and dip out when I need to, days off. Because we have so many people on both first and second shift on our team, I'm able to take days off when I need to. Yeah, really, just the pay and benefits are probably some of the biggest reasons I joined this career field. Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, GMP lab experience is huge, but entering the career field is easy. Biotech is, especially biomanufacturing for pDNA, that's an ever expanding career field. Like it's probably one of our biggest downfalls too. I mean, our growth year over year is so massive; it's almost unmanageable. We do a great job at it, but constantly expanding, constantly bringing on new people, making yourself hard to fire. That's probably one of the biggest things is making yourself a good employee. Because with constantly bringing people in, they're always looking at who can they keep, who should they keep, and why they should keep them. So getting your foot in the door, that's relatively easy. Staying there and doing a good job is key to staying there, I guess. So
Sure. So then, how did you begin your career?
well, like I said, I worked in manufacturing previous, but that was more, not to say that what I don't do now is blue collar, but it's a little more because my job currently requires like a bachelor's degree or years of experience in a lab. What I was doing previous was pretty blue collar union job. So working in a lab, doing same process sampling every single hour. So I entered it by just really not wanting to do that anymore, and
Sure.
just kind of browsing around what's available locally. And this is really, like I said, kind of the only place that does that too, is that biomanufacturing in the area.
Okay.
And unfortunately, being in North Dakota, it's either pretty much my job or you're working in agriculture. And I really no interest in farming or being in agriculture. So
Sure.
kind of,
Sure.
kind of narrowed it out pretty quick.
So you weren't inspired by Farmville, back in the day.
I'm pretty sure my cows are starving right now. I years.
Oh, sure. So then, what was your school and training like for this job?
So school, I feel like I've pretty well covered. A lot of my qualifications for this job, though, came from working, different lab jobs. I've worked at a gold mine in the environmental department. I do water samples and test different concentrations of cyanide in the water because that's what they use to leach out gold from ore. I worked at another lab, manufacturing lab, and then I worked in another department. So that was really big, just having that experience. Learning those jobs, though, learning the tests that you're doing, that's huge because you can go in and do a job that's the same thing every single day, but just making sure you understand what you're doing and like the science behind it, that's even more important. So
Sure.
paying attention is huge, especially obviously in my current role being so heavily regulated by international bodies. We want to make sure that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's. So knowing what we're doing, how we get our results. So yeah, just understanding basic concepts of science and biology.
Sure. Would you say that your college degree was relevant or helpful for what you currently do?
My college degree was pretty general biological sciences. I covered, and with my experience from different summer jobs is applying chemicals or working at gold mines. that probably played more into my ability to do my job. So my degree, if I had changed it to biochemistry or molecular biology or microbiology, that would be probably a little more relevant. I guess I overpaid for a piece of paper that says I understand, how cells grow and how we can extract DNA from them. Definitely helped as far as like understanding the process, but a lot of that too is on YouTube. And like I said, my job it's pretty much the same thing day in and day out. So, that information is everywhere, how cells grow and how you can destroy a cell without destroying the DNA. So my education was relevant for sure, but not specific to my career field.
Sure. So then when you transitioned from college to your current position, how does somebody in your career field go about doing that? Do they have any special programs at all, or like any internships, or do you just kind of like apply for the job? Like once you're, I'm getting close to graduating college, I need to start applying for jobs.
Yeah, we're kind of unique in that aspect. Our founding CEO actually has an Aldevron tower on NDSU campus because that's where he went to school. I think he graduated in 1998 when the company was founded. So about, my math is going to be bad here, 22 plus 2, 24 years ago, probably like 26 years ago. So he's got a huge impact on Aldevron or on NDSU campus. I think just before COVID hit, they started like almost like an HR marketing internship program where you'd work part-time and just have like an outreach program on campus. But obviously, with people, basically with COVID, campus is shutting down. It didn't pan out too well. So that's kind of on the back burner till things, kind of cool off with COVID. Otherwise, we actually do have a program called BOLD, I forget what the acronym stands for, but they're associates that basically spend 2 years cycling through every different department that we offer at Aldevron, and they learn the processes, and it's pretty competitive. The people we have now, I believe we have 3 or 4 hired company-wide. We just had 2 of them leave for our research grade branch in Madison, and 2 just brilliant young ladies, both extremely intelligent, and they pick up the processes very well. And that's obviously highly recognized. And that's just for like people who just graduated. They would apply, right before graduation and basically hit the ground running, whether they're injected into operations, technical operations, client relations, whatever else the company wants them to be doing. They're basically just thrown right into that, sink or swim. Obviously, they wouldn't let them sink, but they're learning everything about the company in the 2-year time, which is a pretty accelerated opportunity. But otherwise, we have a few internships. We have a lot of part-timers who are in college or who are in high school, and that's within different departments, and they work generally not as operators. We have a few part-timers who are like in master's programs or PhD programs, but obviously school's not going to pay for every one of your bills when you're in grad school, so they got to work somewhere. A lot of our part-timers that are in school as like high schoolers or college students, they're generally working as lab techs, which lab techs pretty much hold our company up. They clean different things, making sure that things are done cleaned properly in between growths, and just ensuring that we have all of the logistics that we need in place for that. So a lot of different ways to enter, whether you're high school, college student, or just graduating college. So lots of opportunities there.
Sure. So then moving kind of into our next topic of questions for advice for other people. So how do most people get into this career field, and what are some common entry-level type positions?
I guess a little bit of advice for those entering biotech is I follow a few subreddits where people are always asking, what are the best career fields to enter in biotech? With this PhD or master's or this undergrad degree, don't underplay your experience. Like I said earlier, just understanding the science of the different tests that you're running in different jobs that you've held, that's huge. If you understand the principles of what you're doing and why you're doing it, that's never going to be undermined. And if you're working in a place like that, I recommend looking for a new job, because if you're not appreciated, move on. Um, but yeah, just don't underplay your experience. Always, always look for, different opportunities and just apply everywhere. You have your big companies like Moderna, Pfizer, uh, Aldevron's pretty big, Fujifilm, biotech, that's a pretty big one. Get experience everywhere you can with small companies or big companies. I guess that's some of my biggest advice.
Sure. So then, uh, what are some of like the common entry level jobs? Like if somebody's want to get into like if somebody wants to get into this career field and they're looking around for a job and they don't know where to start, like what would be kind of some of the job titles or
Uh,
positions that somebody would be looking into?
yeah, again, if you don't want to be in operations for a whole long time, I guess don't apply in operations. I don't want to say it's a black hole, but I mean, good operators are definitely going to get used. And I refrain from saying abused, but you're gonna get your use. They're gonna get their use out of you. So, like I said, play up your experiences. Be ready to learn new things and learn them quickly. So just look around for anything that is, a coordinator position, supervisor position, senior operator position. And this is more of a personal thing, but don't be afraid to apply for things that are, that you don't meet all the qualifications for. Some employers, no, I wouldn't even say some, all employers will train you for the job that you need. If they're expecting you to go in and do it perfectly right off the bat, you probably don't want to work there. But yeah, if you meet some of those qualifications, definitely apply. Again, if you don't want to be in operations, anything that says operator or technician, watch out for that, because that's going to be very entry level. Obviously, always have a range for expected salary, because that makes you a little more gives you a better hand at the table when they're coming to negotiations for actually hiring you too. So
Sure. So then, what kind of steps would you recommend somebody take if you're step-by-step instructions on how to prepare themselves for entering this career field?
yeah, I guess it depends on what you want to do. Personally, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time in like research and development, just because that career field requires so much out of you. I don't want to spend 60 plus hours a week working in a lab or working on projects. That's just because I have a family life. But if that's you, definitely, floor it. I would recommend getting a bachelor's degree. That's pretty entry level for research. But if you're trying to take your experience and go to other companies too, master's or doctorate, obviously huge. But if you're trying to stay in one company, I would probably advise against going into, a college degree, just because, you can work an entry level job. And like in my case, I worked for about a year in our research grade department, and, a year of lab experience is what's required at the very minimum to work in GMP. And that opens the door for so many other things. Like I said, GMP is the highest quality of lab you can have. So getting your foot in with that entry level position is, makes it unnecessary to have a bachelor's degree for my current job. So, you don't have to take on all that debt. You can work towards, something that's a little higher quality. And again, just having that question constantly churning is why are we doing this? How are we doing this? What results are we expecting? And how can we get to the results we want? That mindset will help you hand over fist getting, even more doors open for you in biotech. So.
Sure. So then, like, what are kind of the most effective strategies for seeking a position, for the actual seeking portion of it, I guess?
That's kind of a tough one. Seeking, the biggest challenges for that, I guess, are depending on where you're at, like geophysically. Like if, I'm in North Dakota and I wanted to apply for a bunch of positions out on the East Coast, getting over there and getting interviews, that's probably my biggest challenge. Seeking for jobs, just knowing what's out there, looking up different companies, do your research. I spend some time on Reddit, just, reading what other people's opinions are, seeing, looking up biotech and seeing what companies people work for, their experiences. Go on Indeed, look at reviews of companies, just type biotech. I'm sure you'll find something, or just biology. That's probably even more generic and might open your your worldview a little bit more. I would just recommend seeing what other people say about things. And obviously, on the internet, take everything with a grain of salt, because everyone on there is a little salty themselves. So you want to make sure you're getting a true view of what's going on. So
Sure. So then, for people that are kind of curious about the biotech industry, do you recommend any trade journals or magazines or professional associations that would be helpful for somebody's professional development?
I'm sure there are a lot out there. I spend a lot of my time with my head in the clouds. I look at like a lot of astronomy stuff. So I'm always listening to Star Talk by Neil deGrasse Tyson, just a lot of different pop culture stuff, meeting science. I listen to a lot of astronomy-based science stuff. So it's not even really relevant to my job, just stuff I like to listen to, stargazing. I'm sure there are so many things out there. If you don't want to be in operations forever, listen to stuff by John Maxwell, Dale Carnegie, a lot of leadership stuff. Jocko Willink is pretty big too. He's got a few books out there, a podcast. Keeping your eyes open to what is there. There's a lot of like free science stuff, like datadryad.org. It's basically just a database for a lot of like research articles. In science, there's generally a lot of paywalls, and not everyone wants to subscribe to one journal just so they can read other research articles. So again, kind of browsing the internet to find out what's available for free, unless you're really committed to one thing, in which case go ahead, enter that 16-digit card number. Just in my case, I'm always looking for free. Find what's available free, and then find out what you like, fine tune your desires. So
yeah. Hey, you mentioned Dale Carnegie. I'm currently reading a book. What's it? How to Win Friends and Influence Others. Is that what it's called? Something along those lines or whatever. I'm only one chapter in, but it's really good. I know that when we were in ROTC together, that was like one of the recommended reading books, but I never read it, so reading it now.
Yeah, I think that's the only audiobook by Dale Carnegie that I've listened to. But that's kind of like a common theme that I hear in management is, you see books laying on people's desks, and depending on who it is, management desks, you see a lot of like Dale Carnegie or John Maxwell, and there are a handful of others. Those are the only two that come to mind, but a lot of other books that management's reading, and a lot of the principles that they talk about in those books definitely carry over and will keep you out of operations, because that's what every company wants, is even if you are an operator, someone who can manage themselves and other people and inventory. That's huge.
Sure. So then got a kind of a big question for you. So if you could do it all over again, would you choose the same path for yourself? And if not, what would you change?
Oh man, if it didn't affect my personal life, I would not choose the same path. And I feel like everyone, if you had the winning lottery ticket numbers, what would you do? I feel like kind of like that question. I would probably join the same company just earlier on. I wouldn't have spent so much time trying to do other things, just for purposes of seniority, getting experience, and kind of moving up a little bit rather than starting from the very bottom entry level position and taking my time to work up. Just again, for financial reasons. Experience is always great, but like I said, we do the same thing every day. 5 different processes every year, so it's more just having a handle on those things rather than getting the experience with them. So I would change, just because my first job out of college was not fun, working 12-hour rotating shifts, days and nights. That was rough. That's those are the days where you wake up 20 minutes before work and you quick drink some coffee or get something to eat and hit the road. So
sure. So then, I know we kind of talked about advice. Is there any other advice that you would give to somebody who's considering this type of job?
Spend time before you enter biotech. Just kind of whittle down what you want, what you don't like. That's going to help you in the long run. If you just enter in kind of like myself, not knowing what's going on or, what's available to you, then you're going to spend time, working your way up, but kind of, in not really a uniform pattern. So just look at what's available, talk to people, talk to recruiters, HR, marketing, kind of see what they do on all ends of the spectrum. Don't throw yourself completely into one thing, trust but verify type of mentality. See what everyone's going to offer you as far as salaries and benefits. Talking about different companies here. So if you're going to apply at one place, maybe apply for something that's a similar position at a different company and see what they offer. Don't ever sell yourself short.
Sure. And then, are there any specific resources that you recommend anybody or to anyone that is interested in, biotech?
Because it was huge for me in college, I recommend the Amoeba Sisters on YouTube. They're pretty popular. It's just an infographic. They've got short videos that talk about biology concepts. That's what I was talking about earlier. Do I need my degree? Probably not. If I had spent a year doing something else in labs, I could just watch those videos on YouTube. Specific resources otherwise, Microsoft, get proficient with technology. We use an ERP system, which is just our inventory management. It goes from inventory management to like finance to accounting, a bunch of different things. So get familiar with a lot of different software. Ask about that in your interviews. What management systems do you guys use? How can I use those? Will I ever get the chance to train on them? Spend as much time training as possible. If your company is going to let you spend, 2 weeks training on one thing, spend 2 weeks training on it. Become proficient, because those are skills that they're not going to leave you. I don't think any company is going to have their own inventory management system that's developed in-house that, doesn't translate anywhere else. So definitely learn how companies operate on the back end, on the digital end, because that's huge. Lots of different, FAQs online for different softwares, lots of different tutorials, figure out how everyone works different systems in the same way. So
sweet. Then is there anything else that you'd like to add or say or comment that we haven't talked about already?
I probably have touched on it a little bit, but definitely kind of figure out how companies want you to work and how that's going to work with your work-life balance. Again, if you want to do 60, 70 hours a week, there are lab jobs out there in biotech that you can do that, and you can work every day of your life. But, the fruits of your labor are going to go spoiled if you're not able to spend time on yourself or spend time with friends and family. So keep an eye on that. Biggest advice, just look out for yourself. If that means, you have to dive into your lab work, then by all means do it. I know people who've stayed overnight at the lab just to watch something grow and just to monitor it, make sure that it grows properly. Me, on the other hand, I like my bed. I like to go home. I like to go to the gym. I like to spend time with friends. So just know what you want personally and know what you're willing to tolerate and how long that's going to last. Definitely ask questions in your interview process. Try to job shadow everything you can. See everything in a company, obviously, where you're allowed to. So
sure. Well, awesome. Thank you. That's all I have for my questions. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. Our very first episode, I think it went pretty well.
Yeah, I've got a lot of jargon, so hopefully none of that needs to be unpacked too much. A lot of acronyms that I use. So hopefully that doesn't come across as condescending or anything, but just lots of stuff we deal with day to day. So
yeah, and that's probably one thing I can probably work on better too for future episodes, is to make sure that we're stop and ask about acronyms and stuff as we're going along. But yeah, I hope everybody watching, if you're watching this, I hope you get some sort of value out of this content. Leave a comment down below if you'd like to see anything in particular, or if there's anything we can do better on the show. I'm always looking to improve things. So if you liked it, give the video a thumbs up. It'll help us know that this is good stuff, yeah, we're planning on doing more episodes in the future. I've got about 10 friends that are going to be coming on eventually. getting their own individual episodes. So still working out all the kinks in the schedule right now. But I will be posting a schedule of when those episodes will be coming out. Yeah, so we'll always try to do this on Saturday mornings. So kind of, that's when we'll be doing it. But yeah, that's all I have for today. So once again, thank you, Wes, for coming on. And we will catch you all in the next episode.
Excellent.
All right. Have a good one.
Yeah, you